Welcome to Mr. R's art class. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thumbs, subs, and ring that bell. So in this video here, I'm going to show you how to create a grid transfer that is longer horizontally, right? So an image that is longer from left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and type in what I want to go ahead and search and use as a grid transfer. And then you want to go ahead and click on images. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll through these to find the image that I want to use. I'm going to go with this one. You're going to click on it with the left side of your trackpad. And then once it's pulled up on the right hand side, I'm going to go ahead and right click it. And then you're going to have this menu here. I'm going to click on Save Image As. Then I'm going to go over to the left hand side and click on this PC. Click on Documents. Into the academic year. And then into the semester. Then I'm going to go ahead and save this inside of Period 3. Make sure you're saving it in the period that you have My Class. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a folder inside of the assignments folder. I'm going to go ahead and right click on the white space, scroll down to where it says new, move over to where it says folder, and then I'm going to go ahead and create this folder called grid transfer. And I'm going to save it as horizontal. I'm going to go ahead and hit open one more time, and now we're inside that folder there. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image. This is the file name for this image inside this folder. I'll go ahead and call it grid transfer. Iron Man. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, so it's inside that folder now. Then I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Word. You're going to go ahead and click down here, which says type here to search. Click and type in Word, W-O-R-D. Go ahead and open the app. Now I'm going to click on a blank document. Okay, now we need to bring that image over here to this blank document. So I'm going to go down here to the File Explorer. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Documents, the academic year, the semester we're currently in, the period that I saved the folder, assignments, grid transfer. I'm going to right click on the image and type copy. So the reason why we saved this inside of the folder so that we have the original image, right? So you could just go to Google and right click and hit copy image, but you won't have the original image on your desktop. So you want to make sure that you always have the original image inside of your desktop in case something happens and this image isn't available anymore online. So you want to make sure that you have it saved inside of that folder there so that we can always copy it and have access to it. So we're going to go back to Microsoft Word and then going to right click and paste. So click on that clipboard. And I'm going to go ahead and crop this image here. So I'm going to right click and crop. So the crop options up here on top. And I'm just going to bring in these parts on the sides. So this is a rectangular image. Get as close as can to his hand. And then click off the image. Okay, so I want to go ahead and stretch out this image as much as possible. This is just a regular piece of paper, which is 8.5 by 11. So it's 8.5 this way, then 11 inches tall this way. So what I want to do is also make these margins a little bit smaller. So right now this image is sitting about 1 inch from the left-hand side. So I'm going to go up here to Layout, click on Margins, scroll down to where it says Custom Margins, and I'm going to change everything that says 1 inch to 0.25. Go down here to says OK. And when I have this image selected, I'm going to go ahead and grab a corner and pull out towards the right side. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab a corner and pull out towards the right side. Once I get to the other margin over here on the right hand side. So what I need to do is I need to make this image a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, go down here to where it says Format Picture. Then I'm going to go all the way to the right over here where I have these mountains and this little sun here. I'm going to click on Picture Transparency, and I'm going to do about 50%, see what that looks like. Or you can just type over here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click off this image. So what I need to do is put a grid on top of this image here inside of Microsoft Word. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go click up here, stay inside layout, go over here to where it says align, go down to the bottom where it says view grid lines, and right now it's going to go ahead and place that grid on top of this image. I'm just going to make this window a little bit bigger, so I clicked on that maximize button there just to make this window bigger if I need to go all the way to the edge. And so now I have that grid on top of that image there. Right now these are really small grid lines on top of this image, so this is by default. Okay, so we need to go back to align where it has that view grid line there, so it needs to have that check mark there. Again, we're in the layout section, come over here to align, view grid lines to bring up your grid lines. So we need to edit those squares there on that grid. So we're going to go back to align, go back down to where it has this view grid settings. All right, so we need to change the spacing of that grid over here. So right now that is set to 0.13 of an inch. So we're going to set this grid here to 1 inch. So I'm going to delete everything here. So it's just 1 inch on those two there. So I'm going to go back to OK. And now I have a 1 inch grid set up on top of this image of Iron Man. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have this image selected. I'm going to go back up here to where it says wrap text. And then I'm going to click on two different things here. So I'm going to make sure that it has this option selected, so behind text. I'm going to go back up to wrap text and click on this second option where it says fixed position on page. So what that's going to do is that's going to keep that image here as long as I don't have that image selected, right? So my cursor's over here. I don't have the image selected. Now I do, right? You can tell that this image selected because it has these crop marks here on the edges. Okay, so now I have my cursor here and I can go ahead and type in our coordinates. We're going to go ahead and create coordinates here on this image here so that each box has its own coordinates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this image so I could get some space here on the left hand side. So I'm going to click on the image so that these transform tools or these crop marks show up. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller by clicking on the corner and then dragging it towards the center of the image. And now I should be able to type over here. Okay, but this is going to be my X coordinate down here. So I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard and I'm going to space this out here. I'm going to hit space and this is going to be my X. So I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. I could even zoom in. So we'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see what I'm typing inside there. So that's my X there. So just like in the paper version, the left side here is going to be an alphabet. All right, so this will be A. I'm just hitting space here on my keyboard. This will be B, hitting space again on my keyboard. And then I'm going ahead and hitting the up arrow on my keyboard, hitting the space, and this will be C. So everything from the X outward is going to be backwards. Going back to my X with my trackpad. And I'm going to go over here to hit some spaces on my keyboard. You can even hit tab and it'll give you some spaces as well. So this will be numbers down here. And I'm going to hit tab on my keyboard. And then 2. I'm going to hit tab again. 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, I'm hitting tab, so it's going to give me some spaces there. And then 7. So this box here will be A1. This box would be B1. This box would be C1. This box would be A2. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go ahead and save this image here. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, go to this PC, go into the academic year, the semester we're currently in, and then the period that I'm saving these grid transfer files. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this as grid transfer horizontal Iron Man. Alright, so even this might be the same file as another file that's inside of that folder. It won't save over it because this is a Word document, right? In the original image it was a JPEG. So we're going to go ahead and save. And so this is saved now. So this is the original image, right? So these are 1 squares, 1 inch by 1 inches. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale this up to 2 inches by 2 inches. And we're actually going to make the document a lot bigger. Okay, so this image is horizontal, right? So this image is longer horizontally. So that means that this image takes up more squares from left to right, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This image takes up 7 boxes from left to right. And then if you look at the height here, it only takes up 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe that little bottom part down there. All right, so it only takes up 3 squares high. So this is considered a horizontal image. So what we need to do is we're going to go and stay inside Microsoft Word, and we're going to create another document that is horizontal. So we need to make it landscape. Okay, but we're also going to make that document a lot bigger than these default documents inside of Microsoft Word. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, and you can click on Blank Document, and that grid's already there, right? But let's go ahead and pretend that it's not there. So we're going to go to Layout, Align, and click off of that. All right, so this is what your document will look like once you enter inside Microsoft Word, right? If you're just creating a blank document. So we need to set this up horizontally, right? It's sitting in front of us in portrait. So it's sitting here in front of us portrait, meaning that it's sitting in front of us tallest from top to bottom. So let's make this landscape. Let's also get these margins here a little bit closer to the edges of this piece of paper. So we're going to click on Margins, Custom Margins, and then we're going to go ahead and change everything that's 1 inch to 0.25 or period 25, period 25, period 25, hitting OK. Okay, so this is a 8.5 by 11 document right now. So it's 11 inches this way and then 8.5 this way. So we need to make this a lot bigger than that original default image. So let's go down here to size, and it's not going to have the size that we're looking for here. So we're going to make this 12 inches by 18 inches. Right, so we're going to go down here to more paper sizes, and we could go ahead and change that up here. So I'm going to change it to, I'm going to click this down, pull down menu. I'm going to click on custom size, and I'm going to change the width of this to, so the width is set to 11 inches, so that means that this paper is going to be longest from 18 inches because we rotated it. Then the height is going to be 12 inches. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And then you could go ahead and ignore this, right? We're not going to print this out. It's just saying that it might be printing too close to the edges and to fix your margins because your printer can't print that close to the edges. So we're just going to go ahead and ignore that. And so we're going to go ahead and place our grid on top of this document, right? So this piece of paper, this document is 18 inches from left to right. Then we could check the height here. It should be 12 inches, right? So it's about 12 inches. If it doesn't go to 12, that's because our margin is set to 1/4. So it's not taking into account the margin on top and on the bottom. Same thing with the sides here. It's not measuring that. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay inside Layout. We're going to go back to Align. We want to bring those grids up, right? So we're going to view grid lines. Right, so now those grids are really small, but we need to make these a lot bigger. We're going to make these grid marks 2 inches. So we're going to go back to grid settings, and we need to change these default settings from 0.13, and we're going to change it to 2 inches. So I'm going to delete everything there and just put it 2. I'm just going to leave that inch symbol there. Delete everything and then put it 2, and there we go. So these are 2-inch grids here. All right, so this first column here and this first row down at the bottom, that's going to be for our coordinates, right? We're going to set up an X, the ABCs on the left side, and then the numbers on the bottom. Okay, so my cursor's up here in the top left-hand corner. We need to go down to this bottom left corner, and we need to go ahead and put the X there in the bottom left-hand corner. So first thing I'm going to do, though, is my text right now is only 11 inches. I'm going to set it to 26, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter. And I want to go all the way to the bottom there, to that last row. I'm going to go ahead and hit Tab, and this is going to be X. I'm going to hit Tab about 4 times there to get into the next box. 2, 3. I'm hitting Tab about 4 times here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and click anywhere on top with my cursor. This is going to be the ABCs on the left column. So I'm going to hit Tab about twice. So that'll be A. You can even hold down caps lock there so we could do capital letters. 2, B. I'm just hitting the up arrow to go back towards the top. So up arrow, up arrow, up arrow. Tab 2 times. D. Up arrow, up arrow, up arrow. And then this will be E up here. Okay. So this is a blank document, and you're going to transfer everything from that other image there. So we're going to go back to Iron Man. You're going to transfer everything from this A1 into this blank A1. So anything that's drawn inside of this A1 here, right, which would just be these buildings, and you're going to transfer that over to this A1 over here. So you could work on one box at a time. So what you could do is you could go back to that smaller image. I'm going to hit this minimize button up here, and I'm going to go ahead and I could hit X on this. It's just going to get rid of these format tools. And I'm going to go ahead and move this over, and you could just concentrate on one box at a time. So you could even, once you have that minimized, right, so I got to the edge of this window, clicked, I'm holding the click down and I'm scrolling to the left, and then I could hit that zoom here so I could focus on one box at a time on the left hand side there. Okay, so that's A1. Everything inside this box is considered A1. And I'm going to go back to my blank document. I want to make sure I save this here, so I'm going to go File, Save As, this PC, the academic year, the semester. I'm going to scroll down to the folder that we're saving everything in, and for this period it's going to be 3 assignments, grid transfer horizontal, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as grid transfer horizontal. So sometimes when I'm working on a document, I'll put the date that I'm actually working on the document, and then let's say I'm working on this the next day, let's say I'm working on this tomorrow, so then I'll just save it as the 12th, right? So I don't always want to save over what I'm working on. Maybe I want to see my progress, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and put today's date, and if I work on this tomorrow, then I'll change the date on it. So then each date that I'm working on it, I would be able to see my progress. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save, and that's for the blank document there. So I'm going to move this window over to the right. So I hit the minimize button. Now I just need to grab a side here, click, and then move over. So I could also zoom in on this A1. So I'm going to hover over to the scroll bars and hit the zoom button first, because sometimes it doesn't really matter. And it'll just zoom in on the part you want to work on. So there's A1 there. But remember, these boxes are way bigger, right? These are 1 inches by 1 inches. And then these are 2 inches by 2 inches. You can even tell here, right? So that's 1 inch, that's 2 inch. Over here, this is the 2nd inch on this document, and then it's the 4th inch. All right, so you're going to transfer everything from these smaller squares to these bigger squares. And you could use your pen tool, you could use your stylus, and you could use your pen tool, you could use your stylus. And I'm going to go ahead and just transfer everything. I'm going to go back to the draw tool on top, clicking on draw. There's my pen tool. I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this to black. I use sometimes when you click off of it, it already starts drawing something. So you can hit the erase. Go ahead, erase. Make sure you click back on the drawing tool. And now you can go ahead and start drawing on your blank document. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and draw these buildings here. And you could even grab some of these thinner pen tools here if you think these are a little bit too wide. You could try the one that's a little bit thinner. And click back on the pen tool to bring those back to the top. If you need to erase, you could go back to your eraser tool, and then just make sure you always click back on the draw tool. You could even zoom in a lot more, right, to be a little bit more accurate. Sometimes when you zoom in, the stylus is a little bit more accurate. Right, so you're just transferring everything over from these smaller grids here to these bigger grids. So there's that tower there. And then I have a smaller piece. Maybe I want to scroll over, so I'm going to click back on this other document. I'm going to scroll over here. I know this is already A1, so then I know that this is A2, this is A2 here. So I'm just trying to gauge where this building's at over here on this side. So I could just using these hints in this drawing as guidelines, right? So the top of this building here is going to be the corner of that building there almost. Just make sure you click back on the document. Straight down. You could even, you don't always have to use the stylus, you could even use some of these going back to insert and using these shapes here if you really want to get a little bit more accurate, right? If you want to use some of these lines, I'm okay with you doing that. You can use some of those shapes in there too. I'm okay with you doing that. But you want to try to draw as much as possible, right? So this line even crosses over a little bit more, and then you have another vertical line next to it. Okay, so you have this next part of the building here that goes right on top of the grid. Again, you can always zoom in here to be a little bit more accurate with your pen tool. Use those scroll bars if you have to. Alright, so this corner of the building is right on that grid line there. This goes straight down. And then this goes across. Alright, so you could do each part at a time, each square at a time. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here using the zoom tool. Zoom out. And then so again, you want to make sure that you're saving this as much as possible. So you go to File, and since you already saved it, you already created a file name, you can just hit Save. If you want to save it by the date that you're working on it, you would go back to Save As. And it's already saving inside of the folder. I'm going to click this Maximize so you can see the pathway. And it's still inside that folder because you opened it in this pathway, so you could always change it to the next date you're working on it. So I'm going to hit on Save. So once you get done with this whole sheet of paper will be done and complete. You'll have a drawing all across this larger piece of paper here. So what you do is when you're done with it, you'll go back up to Layout, go over to Align. You want to get rid of those grid lines, so you're clicking on View Grid Lines to get rid of that check mark, right? And then you'll have your drawing here. So then you'll also have, this would be a really detailed drawing, right? So it might take a while for it to be uploaded into Microsoft Teams. So I already have it saved as a Word document. Let's just pretend that this is a done image, a completed image. So we'll go to File, Save As, and we're going to change the format of this so that everything's flattened out. All the layers are flattened out, and save it as a PDF. You just want to make sure that you have it saved as a Word document first before you do this. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save, and then everything will be flattened out here. And then you would upload the PDF into Microsoft Teams so that it gets uploaded a lot quicker, a lot faster. Okay, so once you're done with your image, everything's saved, you want to make sure that you have your grid turned off, because if you end up going back into Microsoft Word, sometimes your grid is turned on, right? So you want to make sure that you turn it off, because if you ever create another blank document, that grid will still be there. So you want to make sure that your grid is off. Okay, so if you have any questions of how to create a grid transfer, how to make your document bigger, or how to copy and paste your smaller image into Microsoft Word, go ahead and let me know. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.